"Sir, your son is still breathing." The voice was small, soft, yet somehow it broke through the thick cloud of grief like thunder on a still night. Ethan Moore looked up, startled, as the words registered in his foggy mind. There, just beyond the porch steps, stood a girl barefoot, skin dark with dust, a faded yellow dress clinging to her thin frame. Her hair was in loose braids, and her face bore the quiet resilience of someone who had seen too much too soon. He didn't recognize her immediately. She looked out of place like she had wandered in from another world. Then her eyes met his, steady and solemn, and it hit him. She was the girl from the alley, the same one who used to sit behind the fence, singing to herself, sometimes laughing with, "Get off my property," he snapped, standing up abruptly. "This is a private home. You're not supposed to be here." The girl didn't move. "I came to see him." No," he said, pointing sharply toward the street. "You don't belong here. Go." Her lips pressed into a line. "He was my friend." "You don't know him," Ethan said, harsher than he meant to. "You're just some filthy street kid." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. "His name is Benjamin," she said, "and he used to wave to me from his window. We played games, talked through the fence, shared snacks. He was my best friend." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. The girl's words stirred a distant memory, Benjamin's giggles, his little hands waving at nothing beyond the backyard fence. Ethan had assumed it was his imagination. Still, the grief twisted inside him. "You shouldn't have been talking to him. That's not how we raised him." "Because of my skin?" she asked quietly. "Or because I'm dirty?" Ethan said nothing. "I didn't come for trouble," she continued. "I just wanted to say goodbye. When I heard he died, I waited. I waited all night, thinking maybe it wasn't true. But I had to see him. I had to say goodbye." She stepped closer, cautiously, her feet leaving faint imprints in the porch dust. "You don't get to," Ethan began, but then stopped. There was something in her face, something true, something unmovable. "I'm not going anywhere," she said softly. "Not until I see him." He looked at her for a long moment, torn between anger and something harder to name, guilt, maybe. He finally exhaled, heavily, and said nothing more. The little casket sat in the shade of the porch, surrounded by silence. It was simple, cherry wood with polished trim. The lid was cracked open, revealing the tiny, peaceful face of Benjamin Moore. The girl Maya, she finally told him, stepped forward and peered in. Then she froze. "He's breathing." Ethan's heart skipped. "What did you say?" "I saw this chest. It moved." He rushed to the casket, almost knocking Maya aside, his breath catching in his throat. He bent over, watching, waiting. There, a flutter, the tiniest rise and fall beneath the blue blanket. No, that's not possible." But it was. He gasped. "Oh God, Benjamin." His hands shook as he touched the boy's cheek. Warm. Not cold. Not gone. He scrambled for his phone, dialing with clumsy fingers. 911. "This is Ethan Moore, me son. He was declared dead. Booth's breathing. He's alive. He collapsed beside the casket, tears breaking free. "You're alive, baby. I thought I lost you too." Maya stood nearby, her small hands clutched together. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stood there, firm as stone. "You saved him," Ethan whispered. "You didn't give up." "I just knew," Maya said. "He wouldn't leave without saying goodbye." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Within moments, EMTs swarmed the porch. One of Thema's silver-haired woman with gentle hands confirmed it. "Pulse is weak but steady." They moved with practiced speed, wrapping Benjamin in blankets, placing him inside a portable heated unit. As they loaded him into the ambulance, the medic turned. "You riding with us?" Ethan nodded. He glanced back at Maya, still standing there like a sentinel. "You coming?" he asked. She shook her head. "I'll wait here." The ambulance doors closed. As it pulled away, Ethan's eyes stayed on the girl until she vanished from view. At the hospital, time-blurred machines, voices, antiseptic lights. After what felt like eternity, a doctor approached. "Mr. Moore, your son is stable. He's going to make it." Ethan wept deep, ragged sobs of relief. Hours later, back at home, he found Maya curled up on the porch swing, head resting on her knees. "I didn't thank you," he said. "I didn't do it for you," she replied. "I did it for him." I judged you," Ethan admitted, sitting beside her. "I saw your skin, your dirt. I didn't see you." Maya didn't answer. "You can stay here tonight," he said. "You can stay as long as you need." She finally looked at him. "Will he be okay?" "He already is, thanks to you." That night, she ate quietly at the kitchen table fried chicken, mashed potatoes, cornbread. She smiled once, just briefly, and later, as she lay under Clara's old quilt on the living room couch, Ethan stood at the window, staring up at the stars. He had almost lost everything, but a stubborn little girl, covered in dust, had refused to let the world take one more innocent life, and in doing so, she had saved them both. The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains of the living room, casting soft golden patterns on the floor. Ethan Moore stood in the doorway, holding a steaming mug of coffee, watching Maya as she slept on the couch, wrapped tightly in Clara's old quilt. For a long moment, he didn't move. The events of the night before still clung to him, surreal, fragile, like a dream threatening to dissolve if he dared breathe too hard. His son was alive, not dead, not buried, alive. And it was because of her. Maya stirred slightly, her small face scrunching as the light warmed her cheeks. She didn't wake immediately. Ethan watched as she rolled to one side and tucked her knees closer to her chest, seeking comfort in the blanket. Her bare feet peeked out from the end, thin and dusty. Ethan sipped the coffee, then turned and stepped into the kitchen. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood. On the table sat a half-eaten piece of cornbread and an empty glass. Last night, Maya had eaten slowly, like someone used to rationing every bite. She hadn't asked for seconds. She hadn't spoken much after dinner, just curled up and said, "Good night, sir," and closed her eyes. Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. He grabbed it and saw a missed call and a voicemail, both from the hospital. His stomach tightened as he tapped play. "Mr. Moore, this is Dr. Ellis from St. Luke's. Benjamin is stable, and we've moved him into the NICU for monitoring. He's breathing on his own, and early tests are encouraging. You can come see him at your convenience." Ethan let out a long breath. His knees almost buckled. He gripped the counter and closed his eyes. Benjamin, alive, breathing. He glanced back toward the couch. Maya was awake now, sitting upright with the blanket still draped around her shoulders. Her hair was mussed, and her eyes looked heavy from sleep, but she was watching him, silent, cautious. "Good morning," Ethan said, unsure how to begin. Maya nodded. "I just got a message," he continued. "Benjamin, he's doing well. They've got him in NICU. He's breathing on his own." A flicker of something crossed Maya's face. Relief, joy, but she said only, "Told you." He managed a weak smile. "You did, and I'm sorry I didn't listen." She didn't respond, just looked down at her lap. "I'm going to see him today," Ethan said. "You want to come with me?" Maya's head snapped up. "I can, if you want." For the first time, she smiled just a little. It was quick, uncertain, but it was there. They left an hour later in Ethan's dusty pickup. He offered her the front seat, but she hesitated before climbing in. When he handed her a granola bar from the glove box, she took it with careful hands and said, "Thanks." That was the first real sign of comfort Ethan had seen from her. The ride to the hospital was quiet. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, glancing at her from time to time. Maya stared out the window, watching buildings and cars rush by like scenes from a life she didn't belong to. "You sleep okay?" he asked. She nodded. "You got family anywhere?" She shook her head. "How long you been? On your own?" She glanced at him, then back out the window. "Since last Christmas." Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to ask more, but the look on her face said not now. At the hospital, the staff recognized Ethan immediately. Dr. Ellis met them in the hallway and offered a reassuring smile. "Your son's a fighter, Mr. Moore. He's doing remarkably well, considering everything." They were led to the NICU, bright, sterile, quiet, except for the beeping of machines. Inside, tiny lives lay cradled in glass beds, each connected to tubes, each fighting their silent battles. Benjamin's crib was near the end. Ethan froze when he saw him, so small, so still, yet undeniably alive. The oxygen mask was gone now, his chest rising gently with each breath. He reached into the incubator, brushing a finger against the baby's hand. "I missed you," he whispered. Maya stood behind him, gripping the railing tightly. She didn't move closer until Ethan stepped aside. "You can come see him," he said softly. She approached slowly, eyes wide. She peered in, her breath catching in her throat. "Hey, Benji," she said. "I knew you weren't done playing yet." Ethan felt something knot in his chest. He watched her reach into her pocket and pull out a wrinkled candy wrapper. "I saved this for you," she said, "but you better hurry up and wake up, or I'm eating it." Dr. Ellis stepped back into the room and gave Ethan a nod. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" Ethan followed him out into the hallway. "Your son's condition is stable now," the doctor said, "but there are questions that need answering. How was he declared dead in the first place? And why didn't anyone double-check?" Ethan's face hardened. "Are you saying someone made a mistake?" "I'm saying someone made a decision too fast. And if it weren't for that little girl..." Ethan exhaled sharply. "I know. We're going to investigate. But you should prepare yourself. If negligence is involved, there may be consequences." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I want to know everything." "Is there?" Back inside, Maya was still standing by Benjamin's crib, whispering to him softly, as if her voice alone could keep him tethered to this world. When they left the hospital, the sky had turned overcast. Ethan helped Maya into the truck and started the engine. But before he pulled out, he looked at her and said, "You ever think about staying in one place?" Maya didn't answer right away. "I've got a guest room," he continued. "No strings. Just until we figure things out." She looked at him, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Maya truly is a remarkable little girl. Let's give her a like to show how much she's loved. And don't forget to leave a comment to tell us which city you're watching from, who knows. Maybe someone nearby is following this touching story too." And for the first time, Ethan felt like maybe he wasn't the only one starting over. Maybe, just maybe, both of them had been pulled from the edge by something bigger than pain, by the stubborn breath of truth. The house was quiet when they returned. The kind of silence that felt like a waiting room filled with questions but no answers. Ethan unlocked the door and stepped aside to let Maya in first. She hesitated on the porch for a second, clutching the sleeves of the oversized sweater he'd given her that morning. The sleeves still dragged past her wrists. It made her look even smaller than she was. Inside, the afternoon light slanted through the living room windows, falling across the worn couch where she had slept the night before. Maya glanced around, then walked to the edge of the rug and sat down on the floor cross-legged. She didn't speak, didn't fidget, just sat still, her hands resting in her lap. Ethan watched her from the kitchen doorway. He couldn't stop thinking about what the doctor had said, that someone, maybe the nurse, maybe the attending physician, had called his son's death too quickly, that Benjamin had nearly been buried alive, that if Maya hadn't insisted, he didn't want to finish that thought. He walked to the coffee pot, poured a cup, and stood staring into the steam. His hand was shaking. He didn't feel angry, not yet, just unsettled, like something foundational had shifted. "You want something to eat?" he asked over his shoulder. Maya looked up. "I'm okay." You sure?" She shrugged. "I ate yesterday." Ethan turned around slowly. "That's not an answer." Maya didn't say anything, just dropped her gaze. He walked back into the living room and lowered himself into the armchair across from her. "You shouldn't have to talk like that, Maya. You shouldn't have to think about days between meals." She shrugged again. "I don't mind. You should. You're a kid." "I've been a kid a long time," she said quietly. "Not much changes." That silenced him. They sat in that stillness for a while, until Ethan finally cleared his throat. "You said you don't have family?" She nodded. "Not anymore." "Did you run away?" They disappeared. "First my aunt got sick, then the shelter closed, then I just started moving. Nobody came looking." Ethan's chest ached at her flat tone. Not angry, not dramatic, just factual, as if that kind of abandonment was normal. "You ever been in school?" "Sometimes. I don't stay long. People ask too many questions." He exhaled through his nose. "Well, maybe it's time someone started asking the right ones." She looked up at him. "Like what?" Like why a little girl with a heart like yours had to sleep behind dumpsters when she should have had a warm bed and people who cared. She blinked, as if unsure what to do with that kind of kindness. He leaned forward. Look, Maya, I don't have all the answers. Lord knows I've made mistakes. But if you're willing, I'd like to fix at least one thing. Starting with making sure you're not out there alone anymore. Her eyes didn't tear up. She didn't rush into his arms. She just nodded, slowly, like she was giving herself permission to believe. A knock came at the door. Ethan stood, walked over, and opened it to find a woman in navy scrubs and a clipboard in hand. Mr. Moore? Yes? I'm Darlene Lang from Child Protective Services. We received a hospital report about an unidentified minor involved in a critical care event. A girl named Maya Williams? Maya stood up instinctively, backing a step toward the hall. She's not in trouble, the woman said quickly. We just want to make sure she's safe. Ethan stepped aside, letting her in. She's with me. She saved my son's life. I've read the file, Darlene said gently. She's remarkable, but I need to ask her a few questions. Can we sit? Maya hesitated, then nodded. For the next 20 minutes, Maya answered questions with quiet precision: name, age, where she had last stayed, how long she had been alone. She didn't embellish. She didn't complain. Ethan sat nearby, clenching his fists with each calm reply that made it clear how long this child had been failed by every system meant to protect her. When it was done, Darlene closed her notebook and looked at Ethan. You have no legal custody, she said, but I can see she trusts you. I want to help her, Ethan said. You'll need to start paperwork, home inspection, background check, but I can grant temporary placement for now, given the circumstances. Maya looked up. You mean I can stay? Darlene nodded. If Mr. Moore agrees. Ethan looked at her. You can stay. That night, after dinner, Ethan sat on the porch swing with a cup of tea while Maya lay curled up in the same corner of the couch, flipping through one of Benjamin's picture books. She'd barely spoken during the evening. But now, as the sun dipped low, she asked, Do you think Benji will remember me? Ethan looked up from his cup. I think he'll remember how you made him feel. Safe, loved. That kind of memory sticks. She nodded. Good. The stars began to blink into view. A breeze swept across the porch. Inside, the phone rang. Ethan got up to answer it. It was the hospital. Mr. Moore, the nurse said. We have something you should know. And, what is it? The physician who declared your son deceased. He's no longer employed here. There's going to be an internal investigation. Ethan felt his spine straighten. You're saying someone made a mistake? We're saying it may not have been a mistake, and there may have been pressure to sign off quickly due to other cases. I'm sorry. He hung up slowly, hands clenched. Then he looked over at Maya, still reading. Not a mistake. A choice. Someone had tried to erase his son without care, without question, and no one would have known, if not for the child lying on his couch. He sat back down beside her, and for the first time that day, he realized something. They were both survivors of silence, and maybe, together, they were about to make some noise. The next morning, Ethan woke before the sun. The house was still. He stood in the hallway for a long moment, watching the faint light spill in under Maya's door, the small guest room down the hall that had once belonged to Clara's sewing supplies. Now it had a mattress, a clean sheet, and a hand-me-down lamp shaped like a rocket ship. He'd set it up the night before, while Maya brushed her teeth with a new toothbrush, and the quiet hesitation of someone not used to being told, "This is your room now." Ethan made his way to the kitchen, started a pot of coffee, and sat at the table with the hospital file spread before him. It was thin, too thin. A single signature, a time of death, a nurse's scribbled initials. That was it. No rechecks, no autopsy scheduled, just a closed case. He stared at the document, teeth grinding. It wasn't a mistake. It was negligence, or worse, indifference. The kind that buried children not because they were beyond saving, but because they were inconvenient. Maya shuffled into the room barefoot, rubbing her eyes. "Is he okay?" she asked without preamble. Ethan looked up. "Still stable. Doctor says he might be breathing completely on his own by tonight." She nodded, grabbed a banana from the counter, and sat across from him. "We're going back today," he added. "I want to see him again." "You will." He took a long sip of coffee. Then, after a pause, asked, "Have you ever been inside a courtroom?" Maya blinked. "No, you might soon." "Ugh." She set the banana down. "Why?" "Because I'm not letting them get away with this," he said. "And they'll want to ask questions about what you saw, about how you knew." Maya shifted in her seat. "Will they think I'm lying?" "They might. Will they listen to someone like me?" He leaned forward, voice steady. "They'll have to." That afternoon, they returned to St. Luke's Hospital. This time, when they walked through the main entrance, people noticed. Nurses nodded respectfully. A young intern whispered, "That's them." Word had spread, not just about the boy who came back to life, but about the girl who had insisted he never left. Dr. Ellis met them in the NICU. "He's strong," she said with a smile. "You can hold him, Mr. Moore." Ethan hesitated, then stepped forward. The nurse helped ease Benjamin into his arms. The boy was lighter than he remembered, but warm, breathing, alive. Maya stood by his side, eyes wide. "You want to hold him too?" Ethan asked. She looked startled. Can I? You're the reason he's here." Maya reached out slowly. Ethan helped guide the baby into her arms. She sat down carefully in the chair by the window, cradling Benjamin with the kind of gentleness only a child who's known loss can give. "Hey, Benji," she whispered. "You missed a lot." Ethan stepped back, watching them, this girl and his son, two lives that never should have crossed, and now couldn't be untangled. After a few minutes, a hospital administrator approached a tall man with a pressed suit and a face trained to smile while delivering hard truths. "Mr. Moore," he said, "can we speak privately?" Ethan handed Benjamin back to the nurse and followed the man into a side room. "We've reviewed your son's case," the man said, "and we are deeply sorry." "That's not enough," Ethan replied. "I understand. There will be disciplinary action, possibly a license review for the attending physician. I want names, and I want full transparency. Someone almost buried my son alive. If it wasn't for that little girl, he'd be in the ground right now. We are preparing an official statement." "I don't want a statement," Ethan said, stepping closer. "I want justice, and I want it public. Every parent deserves to know how close you came to burying the wrong child." The administrator held his composure, but his jaw twitched. "If you go to the press, I'm already thinking about it." And, back in the NICU, Maya sat in the rocking chair, still holding Benjamin. A young nurse had pulled up a stool and was gently braiding Maya's loose hair as they talked quietly. When Ethan returned, Maya looked up at him, her face soft with wonder. "He's strong," she said. "He gets it from you." They left the hospital just before sunset. On the drive home, Ethan called a friend, a lawyer, semi-retired but sharp as ever. He explained everything: the declaration of death, the lack of tests, the girl who refused to be silenced. "I'll call in a favor," the lawyer said. "You want a civil case or criminal? I want the truth, and I want the people who tried to bury it held accountable." That night, Ethan cooked chili. Maya helped stir, asking questions about cumin and beans. When they sat to eat, she looked up between bites and said, "Are you scared?" "A little." "I'm not." He smiled. "Why not?" "Because we're telling the truth. And the truth don't scare easy." Later, after Maya had gone to bed, Ethan sat on the porch with his laptop. He opened a blank document and began to write. He told the story plainly, no embellishment. Just the facts. A declaration of death, a casket on a porch, a voice from the shadows, a little girl with dirt on her cheeks and truth in her heart. He finished with a question. How many other children have been lost because no one was listening? He posted it, not to a blog, not to a quiet forum, but to a national site for whistleblowers and patient rights. He didn't know if it would spread, but it was a start. As he closed the laptop, a cool wind swept across the porch. Ethan looked up at the stars. In the room behind him, his son was breathing, and in the room down the hall, a child who had been left behind was finally being seen. The silence had screamed, and now, the world would have to listen. By morning, the post had gone viral. Ethan hadn't expected it, not this fast, not this loud. He woke to a phone humming with messages, emails, missed calls. Headlines were already surfacing across local stations. Declared dead, Found alive Texas father's outcry against hospital negligence. Street girl saves boy's life and exposes a medical scandal. His words, his grief, and Maya's stubborn truth had pierced through the static of the internet and drawn the world's gaze. Maya came into the kitchen rubbing her eyes, her hair still loosely braided from the nurse's gentle hands the day before. Ethan looked up from his phone and smiled, offering her a bowl of oatmeal he'd already prepared. "Something's happened," he said gently. She sat down, her spoon poised midair. "Bad or good?" "Maybe both." He passed her the tablet, the screen already open to one of the headlines. She stared at it, lips parting slowly. There was a photo from the hospital, Maya holding Benjamin in the NICU, her eyes locked on the boy as if shielding him from the world. "That's me," she whispered. "On the news. People are talking," Ethan said. "They want to know more. Journalists, advocates. Some just want to say thank you." Maya didn't smile. She set the spoon down, suddenly unsure of the spotlight. "I didn't mean for all this." "I know," Ethan said. "But when you do the right thing, sometimes the world notices, especially when no one else was brave enough." The phone rang again. Ethan checked the caller ID. Marcia Holloway, an investigative journalist from Austin. He'd spoken with her once, briefly. Now she wanted to drive down and meet them. "She's good," Ethan explained. "Respected. She's exposed some heavy stuff before. Medical fraud, wrongful deaths. She's not looking for gossip, she wants to help." Maya shifted in her seat. "Do I have to talk to her?" "Only if you want to. No one's going to force you to do anything, Maya. This is your story too." She nodded slowly, thoughtful. By late afternoon, Marcia arrived. A tall black woman in her early 50s. She carried herself with calm authority, well-worn boots, a leather satchel, and eyes that scanned everything but judged nothing. She shook Ethan's hand firmly, then turned to Maya and offered a gentle smile. "Mind if I sit with you a while?" she asked the girl. Maya nodded and led her to the porch, where they sat side by side on the old swing. Ethan kept his distance, watching from the doorway as they talked. Marcia didn't press. She asked soft questions, letting Maya wander through her answers at her own pace. How she had met Benjamin, where she'd been sleeping, what made her stay even when Ethan told her to go. "You weren't afraid he'd call the police?" Marcia asked. Maya shrugged. "I was more afraid he'd bury Benji alive." And how did you know he wasn't dead?" Maya touched her chest. "He felt close, like when you whisper to someone and they hear you, even if they don't answer." Marcia blinked. "That's quite a thing to say." Maya looked at her. "It's true." When the interview was over, Marcia stood, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "You're something rare, Maya. Not just because you saw what others didn't, but because you stayed, even when the world told you to walk away." Later that evening, while Maya was napping, Marcia sat with Ethan at the kitchen table. "I'm going to run this story," she said. "All of it. The botched declaration, the failure to recheck vitals, the missing protocols, and Maya's voice front and center. Will that put her in danger?" Ethan asked. "From the system, I mean." "Not if I do it right. I'm not naming her shelter history. I'll talk to the right legal advocates, social workers who've fought for kids like her. This can be a platform, not just a spotlight." Ethan exhaled. "She deserves everything good that comes next." Marcia paused. "And you? You ready for what happens next?" He met her gaze. "If it means no other parent buries their child while they're still alive, yeah, I'm ready." That night, they turned on the news. Maya sat on the couch, wrapped in the quilt again, eyes wide as her own face appeared on screen, framed by headlines, surrounded by commentary. "She's being called a hero," one anchor said. "But she doesn't live in a home. She lives wherever she can. And somehow, she saw what trained medical staff missed." Another anchor added, "The hospital has not yet issued a full statement, but an investigation is underway, and criminal negligence has not been ruled out." Maya watched in silence. Then, quietly, "Does this mean I'm not invisible anymore?" Ethan sat beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You were never invisible, Maya. They just weren't looking hard enough." The next morning, the front porch was covered in letters. Envelopes slid through the mail slot, others hand-delivered. Cards, drawings from children, even care packages with clothing, books, and a note that read, "To the girl who reminds us what it means to be brave." Ethan brought them inside and set them in the living room. Maya stared at them, overwhelmed. "They're for you," he said. "All of them?" He nodded. "All of them." She reached for one envelope and opened it carefully. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of two stick figures, one light-skinned, one dark, holding hands under a tree. A simple message underneath: "Friends forever." Maya held it close. Then, after a moment, she looked up at Ethan. "I don't want to be famous." "You're not," he said gently. "You're just seen now, and that's different." Outside, the breeze stirred the letters again. Inside, the truth continued to unfold own story, one voice, one brave child at a time. And the world, once blind, was finally starting to look back. The days that followed felt both fast and slow, like time couldn't quite decide whether it was healing or unraveling. Ethan tried to keep things steady for Maya. He made breakfast each morning, kept the television off unless she asked, and took her to see Benjamin every other afternoon, where the boy continued to grow stronger, blinking more, grasping Ethan's finger with quiet trust. But beneath it all, something simmered. The news coverage had stirred something deeper than admiration. There were murmur-scold voices behind warm smiles. Not everyone liked the story being told, especially those whose names had yet to be spoken. It started with a letter. No return address. Just a single page in a manila envelope that arrived one cloudy Tuesday morning. "Stay silent, Mr. Moore. Or next time, it'll be permanent." Ethan read it once, then twice. The words weren't typed. They were cut from newspapers, pasted with the kind of care that made his skin crawl. He didn't tell Maya. Not yet. But he handed it over to the sheriff's office in town. Sheriff Dwyer was a stocky man in his 60s with a sharp mind dulled slightly by too many years behind a quiet desk. "You think it's real?" Ethan asked, pacing the small office. Dwyer set the letter down, squinting. "Hard to say. Might be someone bluffing. Might be someone scared. Either way, you've kicked a hornet's nest. I just want the truth out." "And the truth's what they fear," Dwyer muttered. "I'll file it. But be smart. Lock your doors. Don't go poking where you don't need to." Ethan left with a pit in his stomach. When he got home, Maya was sitting on the porch swing, flipping through another bundle of letters. This one had crayons and small toys donations from strangers who wanted to give her more than just words. "Anything good?" he asked. She held up a tiny plush fox. "This one came from Oregon. They said it reminded them of me. Quick and clever." He smiled. "Fitting." But that night, after Maya was asleep, he triple-locked the doors and checked the windows twice. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, not just from behind screens, but from somewhere closer. The next day, Marcia Holloway returned. She brought legal documents and outline of the hospital's internal communications that had been leaked anonymously to her inbox. "They knew," she said bluntly, dropping the folder on the kitchen table. The attending physician flagged inconsistencies in Benjamin's vitals, but the night supervisor overrode it, said there wasn't time to reassess, beds were needed, and your son was a non-responsive case. Ethan sat down hard, so they chose to write him off. "They called it streamlining care," she said, voice hard, and it wasn't the first time. She opened the folder and pointed to a list of names: 3 other children, 2 elderly patients, all declared dead in circumstances too fast, too clean. "Where are the families?" Ethan asked. "Scared, paid off, or grieving too deep to fight." "I'm not," Marcia nodded, "which is why we've got another meeting scheduled, with a senator's office, someone who actually cares." Maya wandered in mid-conversation. She stood at the doorway, eyes flicking between them. "They tried to do that to other people?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "Yes." She stepped forward. "Then we have to keep going." Marcia gave her a soft smile. "You've got more courage than most grown men I know." Later that night, the 3 of them sat on the porch, the air thick with the scent of approaching rain. Maya was quiet for a long time, staring out into the yard. "I used to think no one would ever listen to me," she said softly, "that maybe I was meant to just disappear." Ethan looked over, heart heavy. "Not anymore." Maya nodded. "Now I'm loud." He chuckled. "Yeah, you are." Then her eyes sharpened. "But they're scared of that, aren't they? Scared of me telling it." He didn't lie. "Yes, but that's why it matters even more." The next morning, a new face arrived at the door. Ems, Elaine Bennett, a representative from the Department of Family and Child Services. Older, impeccably dressed, but not cold. She sat with Maya and Ethan for an hour, reviewing paperwork for temporary guardianship and the next steps toward foster placement or adoption. She has options now, Elaine said. People willing to open homes. But if you're serious, Mr. Moore, you'll need to be ready. This won't be easy. Ethan looked at Maya. She was coloring quietly, her legs swinging beneath the kitchen chair. I'm not backing down, he said. Not from her. Not from this fight. Elaine nodded. Then we'll begin the process. That night, as thunder rolled across the sky and rain finally fell, Ethan tucked Maya into bed. She looked up at him, serious and small. You think they'll ever try to hurt Benji again? No, he said. Not on my watch. She pulled the quilt higher. If they do, I'll hear him. I'll know. Ethan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. You're not alone anymore, Maya. And for the first time since she walked up to his porch and whispered the truth that saved his son's life, she believed it. The shadows at the door were real, but so was the light inside. And together, they were just getting started. By dawn, odd things had started happening. Ethan noticed muddy footprints in the yard, despite the rain. A neighbor mentioned a car idling outside late at night. Maya, quiet and wise beyond her age, only watched him. No fear, just watchfulness. On Monday morning, Ethan escorted Maya to school for the first time in years. An adult carpool in front of the school greeted them with curious smiles. Maya's backpack, slightly oversized, drooped against her shoulders. A few kids recognized her from news stills. Whispers followed them down the hall, but most ignored her, and that was fine. At the courthouse, glass doors loomed like silent judges. Ethan and Maya stepped inside, holding hands. The case was just beginning. A hearing on Maya's temporary guardianship and a preliminary inquiry into the hospital's actions. The waiting room was crowded. Hospital lawyers in crisp suits, press in clumps, some local parents here to show support, a few protesters demanding healthcare accountability. Maya tugged at Ethan's sleeve. Is it okay? He bent slightly. You're doing great. Just tell the truth. The clerk called their names. They followed into a small courtroom, sunlight streaming through tall windows. The judge, a gray-haired woman with steady eyes, reviewed documents. Ethan stood first. He spoke slowly, deliberately, giving Maya room to breathe. Your Honor, we are here to ask that Maya Williams be placed under my temporary guardianship. She is the child who saved my son, and without her, my son would be gone. He outlined their living situation. Maya had slept on the porch, had no guardians, and needed stability. Each word was a brick in a foundation he'd built with hope and fear. Maya stood next. Her legs trembled a little, but her voice rang clear. I don't have anywhere else to go. Mr. Moore is giving me a home. I want to stay. A lawyer for the state asked gentle questions. Was Maya safe? Did Ethan understand the responsibilities? Would she have school, food, medical care? Ethan answered methodically. Marie, the lawyer, presenting letters and documentation. The hospital statement, Maya's health screening, a character letter from Marcia Holloway. When it was over, Ethan squeezed Maya's hand. You did amazing. Outside, reporters waited. Marcia stood nearby, camera off duty, offering a proud nod. How do you feel? She asked Maya softly. She shrugged. Better. Like I deserve to be here. The state's lawyer addressed both of them. A decision will be sent within a few days. For now, temporary placement is approved. Full hearing comes later. Relief flooded over them. They walked out together. The sun was warm. Ethan put an arm around Maya's shoulders and guided her to the truck. Later that day at home, there was a knock. Sheriff Dwyer stood on the porch holding a small cardboard box, his face grim but sympathetic. Thought you two might want these. He handed it over. Inside was a police report, photos, a handful of documents. He nodded. We tracked that car. Plate came back to a temp rental company, no tie. Back to anyone at the hospital. But we didn't find footage yet. I'll keep you posted. Ethan closed the box with a sigh. Thank you. Dwyer offered one last warning. Be careful. That evening, in the kitchen, they prepared dinner together: spaghetti, garlic bread, the scent cutting through fear. Maya stirred sauce, humming a tune. Ethan watched her, his heart full. Before bed, he checked the mail. Another envelope, this time with a glossy invitation, Annual Hospital Gala Honoring Excellence, the 2nd of April. His name was listed among major attendees. He tossed it into the recycling bin. Why? Maya asked. They want me to show up. To thank them publicly, he replied. She frowned. But they almost killed Benji. He nodded. Yeah, no thank you. They ate quietly. They didn't need more words. The bond, fragile and growing, needed only presence. The next morning, the news exploded again. The hospital had released a statement admitting procedural errors, but lacked sufficient evidence for any criminal charges. Investigation would continue in confidence. Public opinion was skeptical. Ethicists were quoted calling it a systemic failure. Ethan and Maya watched the coverage together. They're still blaming someone else, Maya said. They're trying to control the story, Ethan replied. But we can't let it go away. Maya looked at him. What next? He smiled gently. We tell them what next looks like. That weekend, they boarded a flight to the state capital. Ethan had arranged meetings with lawmakers and a nonprofit that advocates for children's medical rights. Maya held his hand on the plane, eyes glued to the window. They checked into a small hotel. Ethan tucked Maya into a twin bed while he set up documents on the desk. You sure you're okay? She nodded sleepily. As long as you're here. He kissed her forehead. Always. Morning light revealed heavy clouds. They headed to the State House marble steps, echoes of history, voices rising from corridors. Marcia joined them, recording discreetly. A senator took their statements, listened to Maya's story firsthand. He suggested drafting a bill. Mandatory second confirmation for pediatric death certificates. Better training. Legal protections for whistleblowers. Maya stared up at the senator. They need to hear us. We will make them listen, Ethan promised. They walked out into a gentle drizzle. Maya looked up. Rain after drought. He nodded. Exactly. That night, they landed home. Exhausted but hopeful. Maya fell asleep before her head hit the pillow. Ethan sat alone on the porch, journal open. He wrote, 2 lives, 1 voice, 1 door opened. We walked through it together. The rain had washed the mud from the footsteps, but it couldn't wash away their resolve. Soon the full hearing would come. Soon Americans would demand better. And in the silence of courtrooms, offices, and hearts, a whisper of justice would grow louder. In every breath Benjamin Tikevery beat Maya's heart was the promise of a future they would build, together. The morning after their session at the State House dawned soft and gray. Clouds draped the sky like a borrowed blanket, and the wet scent of rain lingered in the air. Ethan woke before Maya, walked to her room, and paused at the half-open door. She was gone. The little bed was neatly made. The rocket lamp glowed faintly. He looked around the room. No backpack. No sneakers left behind. Only the last coloring book pages spread on the nightstand. Anxiety washed over him. He sprinted down the hall, heart pounding. Maya? He called. Maya. He found her friendless in the living room, doors locked, windows closed, quiet that felt empty, not peaceful. He grabbed his phone and dialed Sheriff Dwyer. She's missing, he said, voice tight. I thought she'd fallen asleep, but she's gone. And, within minutes, Dwyer arrived. He scanned the house, checked the locked doors again, and pulled Ethan aside. She could have snuck out, Dwyer said gently. She's small, quick. Tracks show she left around 6:30 a.m., heading east. Why would she leave? Ethan asked, dread humming in his voice. She might be scared, Dwyer said. Or maybe she thinks she's needed elsewhere. I'll talk to her friends at school. We'll tap phones, check shelters, hospitals. We'll find her. Ethan? Ethan cursed under his breath. Maya, who had held courts with senators, was gone like a whisper in the hall. He retraced his steps mentally. Had he asked too much? Pushed too hard? The newspaper interviews, the letter writing, the appearances, they were meant to empower her, not drive her away. He called Marcia first. Her voice was firm. We'll get her back. You need to organize a press release, please. Not more interviews. Just ask people to give her space to come home. As Ethan made flyers, Sheriff Dwyer's men knocked door to door. A neighbor reported seeing her heading toward the pond near Elm Street. Another said she stopped by the library. Ethan and Dwyer stood at the edge of the pond still, gray, empty, no footprints in the mud, not even a stray shoe. They could have gotten her by now, Dwyer said. We'll widen the search. Ethan watched the water reflect his weary face. He thought of the rain, of the sky, and of the fear in Maya's small being. She had given so much to this fight it was no surprise she'd feel like hiding from it all. Envelopes and flyers were posted. Social media pages flickered her smiling photo alongside Benjamin, captioned Maya, missing. Messages poured in. Have you checked this shelter? We love you, Maya. The kindness warmed him, but it nagged, too like band-aids over a wound that wouldn't close. 3 hours in, as the afternoon waned, the sheriff's phone rang. Dwyer listened, then closed his eyes. He looked at Ethan. She's at the shelter on Main. They say she has to come back. Ethan's chest both swelled and squeezed. Relief and regret tangled within. They drove through puddles, sirens off. Ethan couldn't look at her until she climbed into the patrol car behind bars of metal mesh. Her eyes brimmed when she saw him. She slid into the passenger seat, silent for a long moment. Then she said, I just needed to breathe. He reached for her hand but didn't touch. I'm sorry I pushed you. I didn't realize. Maya stared at her hands. I just couldn't do it anymore. The cameras, the words hero, survivor. I'm more than that. He closed his eyes. I know. Finally, she looked at him. Can we go home? Sheriff Dwyer watched from the car next to theirs. He nodded. Glad you're back. On the drive home, Ethan didn't speak. He glowed differently now, like a man who had learned something dangerous. That love isn't possession, and that protecting sometimes means letting go. That night, Ethan made grilled cheese and tomato soup, Maya's favorite. She ate slowly, tears in her eyes. He didn't ask why she left. He just stayed quiet, gave her space. Later, they sat on the porch swing. The world felt calm again. Thomas rain soaked the night, cooled the heated pavement. Maya leaned into Ethan's side, resting her head on his shoulder. I don't want to disappear again, she whispered. You won't, he said. Not while I'm here. She looked up. Promise. He pulled her close. Promise. He raised his head as Warren, the neighbor's dog, barked in the yard. A distant car passed. The leaves shimmered with moisture. Their small home smelled of comfort and forgiveness. For the first time in weeks, Ethan believed it could be a haven. Tomorrow would come with questions, court answers, hospital reviews. But tonight, all that mattered was this. She was home. They were home. And together, that was enough to hear the whispers in their hearts, gentle, hopeful, true. The next morning, Ethan walked into the living room to find Maya perched atop the windowsill, watching dawn weave gold through the curtains. He carried a stack of letters and documents, new evidence they had collected in the hospital investigation, along with notes from Marcia's Senate meeting. Words swam in his head. Wrongful death action. Statute of limitations. He unfolded a letter from a Houston law firm that specialized in birth injuries and malpractice. Maya, he began, setting it on the coffee table beside her. Her small fingers traced the heading, Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code, Section 74.251. Minors under 12 have until their 14th birthday to file a claim, Ethan said, voice quiet. That gives us time, but not much. Maya studied the brochure. Does that mean I can help now? Ethan nodded. Yes, you're the star witness. You saw what matter-of-fact evidence missed. Maya nodded, eyes fierce. Let's do it. They spent the morning with Marcia and their friend, the semi-retired attorney from Austin, drafting documents to file a healthcare liability claim. They outlined witness statements, hospital memos, and Maya's recorded testimony. Texas law required an expert report within 120 days after answers were filed, a standard threshold. Their attorney explained how Texas caps non-economic damages at $250,000, even in cases of gross negligence, and only $500,000 total against hospitals. Maya's brow furrowed. They almost buried him alive, that's all? Ethan squeezed her hand. This law forces them to listen and to pay even if it doesn't make it right. His voice cracked. We'll make sure no one else slips through. As they worked, Marcia reminded them that public pressure could push lawmakers to revisit malpractice caps. Your story is powerful, she said. It may change laws. By midday, they delivered the initial claim to the county clerk. The filing triggered a legal process. Hospital lawyers would formally respond, and the court would set deadlines for evidence and motions. Maya filed as a minor through Ethan, her guardian. Back at home, the air carried the scent of rain. Maya and Ethan sat in the silent kitchen, exhausted. "It feels like real," she whispered, "like it's not just talk." He smiled, proud and sad. "It is real, and people are already listening." That evening, they gathered on the porch with Sheriff Dwyer, Marcia, and their attorney. Ethan handed Maya a fresh glass of lemonade. The group discussed their next steps, securing expert witnesses like a pediatric neonatologist to testify on standard Quran, preparing for depositions. "Remember," their attorney said gently to Maya, "truth doesn't fear questions." She nodded firmly. "I'm ready." Outside, the streetlights flickered on as dusk settled. Benji slept upstairs in his nursery, breathing steadily. Maya lifted her glass. "To justice," she said quietly. Ethan and the others raised their cups. The toast was for the boy who almost vanished, the girl who saved him, and the promise that even the smallest voice could shape big changes. Overhead, clouds parted just enough to reveal one bright star. Against the darkness, that one light held them all firm. The courtroom felt colder than the Texas morning. Long rows of wooden benches glinted under harsh fluorescent lights. Ethan sat beside Maya at the front, her small hand wrapped around his. Reporters' lenses flashed through a cloud of tension, but all they could see was the two of them, their fierce faces locked onto a single purpose. The judge entered, tall and solemn, and took her seat. A hush fell. The hospital's counsel presented a stack of documents thick enough to hide behind. Declarations, internal emails, policy manuals. Ethan imagined the excuses tucked within forms filed on time. Protocols followed except for one painful truth they couldn't conceal. The first witness took the stand. Dr. Karen Simmons, a pediatrician with soft brown eyes. She had reviewed Benjamin's records, including that fateful declaration of death. Her voice was calm but firm. There was no documented second assessment after the nurse's death pronouncement. It is standard practice to verify vital signs thoroughly, including auscultation and device confirmation. She paused, gripping the desk. Had that occurred, Mr. Moore's son would have been correctly identified as alive before preparation for burial. Down the row, Maya watched. She knew part of the truth had points and evidence. But this was vindication. Next came Maya Williams. She climbed the steps with steady courage. Ethan felt his breath hitch, but she walked head held high. The courtroom watched a 9-year-old poised in front of a crowd larger than any classroom she'd left behind. The attorney guiding her asked, "Maya, can you tell the court what you saw?" Her voice projected clearly. "Mr. Moore's son was in the casket on the porch. I saw his chest move. I knew he was still breathing. No one else believed me, but I knew." He nodded. "Why did you stay, even when Mr. Moore asked you to leave?" Maya paused. "Because I was his friend. He needed someone to say he was still here." A tremor passed through the courtroom, not sorrow, not anger, but awe. The judge leaned forward, eyes on Maya as she returned to Ethan's side. Then came Sheriff Dwyer, recounting the letter and threats made to Ethan, reinforcing the stakes they'd faced. The hush stretched longer than earlier. Finally, the hospital's defense counsel spoke. He described protocol, time constraints, emergency triage, but his words fell flat compared to the testimony already given. The judge closed her eyes for a moment. She glanced at Ethan and Maya, then at the defense table. "This court recognizes the extraordinary courage and integrity shown by young Miss Williams," she said slowly. "It is unacceptable that a life was nearly extinguished through procedural failure." She inhaled deeply. "The hospital is found liable for negligence. A judgment shall be determined in a separate hearing. Temporary guardianship of Miss Williams by Mr. Moore is approved pending full adoption review." The words landed like thunder. Maya gripped Ethan's hand. He closed his eyes and whispered, "You did it." Outside, cameras clicked and reporters buzzed, but Ethan and Maya walked out side by side in unspoken triumph. The sun shone warm your reward after the long cold of justice delayed. Later, in the safety of their front yard, Maya hugged Ethan. "Will you really adopt me someday?" He knelt, eyes shining. "I will, I promise." A silhouette stepped onto the porch, a small crowd of neighbors. including Clara's mother and longtime friends who had watched quietly through grief and fear. They offered congratulations, hugs, even homemade cupcakes with blue icing. That afternoon, they celebrated quietly: pizza, cake, laughter, and small voices telling stories. Maya talked about building that treehouse with Benjamin. Ethan laughed deeper than he had in months. The weight of fear was gone for now. When evening came, Ethan tucked Maya into her small bed. Beside her, Benjamin lay dreaming, his chest rising and falling, proof of a second chance. "Good night, little hero," he whispered. She smiled sleepily. "Good night, Daddy." Ethan left the room, paused at the doorway watching them. The world outside would keep spinning laws, investigations, policies to change, but inside these walls, healing was already taking shape. And for the first time since tragedy struck, the future looked possible, bright, hopeful, theirs to build together. The morning light entered gently through the bedroom window as if it, too, were bearing witness to new beginnings. Ethan woke to the sound of soft giggles. Maya and Benjamin, sitting outside the bedroom door, their heads bowed over a tiny wood plank balanced between them. The plank was freshly painted and anchored by 2 sawhorses that Ethan had built over the weekend, a mini treehouse floor in miniature scale. The 2 friends had been working quietly since dawn, each holding a paintbrush and trading jokes only overheard in sweet laughter. Ethan slipped downstairs and paused at the banister. The sight of his daughter and Sonhe's family stitched together, side by side, painted a wound-deep ache into stunning relief. He wiped a tear, swallowed hard, and stepped onto the porch to greet them. "Morning, builders." Maya looked up and smiled. Benjamin clapped his tiny hands. "Daddy." Ethan sat beside them as Maya dipped her brush into forest green paint. Benjamin, with a tongue between his teeth, copied her stroke. "We're building the floor for our treehouse." It's perfect," Ethan said. "You 2 make a good team." Maya glanced at him. "Benji said the branches will grow windows." "That sounds about right," Ethan said warmly. The morning passed softly. After finishing the plank, they trimmed branches in the backyard under the shade of the oak tree. Maya swung in the hammock while Ethan helped Benjamin pick wildflowers that Maya arranged into a crown. They paused often, surveying their work and breathing in sun-warmed air. It was an ordinary scene made sacred by survival and unity. Later that afternoon, Marcia Holloway arrived with fresh news. The hospital's board had launched mandatory training for all NICU staff, promising independent oversight. A state senator announced informal plans to draft legislation on required second confirmations for pediatric death pronouncements. Ethan listened proudly while Maya perched on his lap, her arms around his neck as she leaned forward. "That's for me," she whispered. Marcia smiled. "For all kids, because of ones like you." That evening, the 3 of them sat around the table for a home-cooked meal: baked salmon, roasted sweet potatoes, and steamed broccoli, foods that Clara once served for comfort. Maya helped set the table while Benjamin lifted his bouncy legs in anticipation of dinner. Ethan surveyed them and felt a peace deeper than relief. After dinner, they lit candles in Clara's small memorial garden out front. The flickering lights glowed on flowers that had grown despite the drought-pink geraniums, white daisies, and a budding rose. Ethan placed a new stone engraved with "Family Rebuilt" beside Clara's marker. Maya laid her flower wreath gently on the ground. Benjamin helped push the petals. They stood silently in the glow of the candles, soundless except for light wind and the soft hum of crickets. Ethan felt Maya's hand slide into his. He squeezed gently. In that hush, he recognized full return of trust, of hope, of a life rearranged but not broken. Weeks later, Ethan arranged a small celebration, an unfolding backyard party with neighborhood families, balloons, cupcakes, and an inflatable slide. Benjamin squealed as he zoomed down. Maya joined other children near the slide, now smiling easier, no longer hesitant. She'd made friends in her classroom. 2 girls she met that week brought brownies and shy waves. Ethan watched quietly from the porch. He sipped iced tea and thought of all they'd been through: grief, fear, courtrooms, threats, and here, at last, was normal. The daylight diffused through flags, laughter, family chatter. A string quartet from the local community college played gentle tunes under the oak tree. Marcia appeared with a newspaper clipping announcing the hospital's negligent settlement. Ethan didn't mention the figure $500,000. Instead, he slipped the paper to Maya. She glanced down and smiled. More for treehouse? Paint? Ethan laughed. You name it, kiddo. Late that night, after guests left and the breeze cooled the yard, Ethan tucked Benjamin into bed. Then he knocked gently and entered Maya's room. The rocket lamp glowed as she lay next to a mountain of plush toysome from donors, others from friends. She hadn't yet moved into a bed with rails. Instead, she opted for blankets on the floor, near Benjamin's nursery window. Something she said made her feel close to him. Ethan perched on the floor. Can I sit? She nodded. He sat beside her, his presence comforting more than words could be. They listened to the night hum. Dad? Yes? You think I'll always be safe now? Ethan hugged her tightly. I'll do everything I can, always. She exhaled slowly. I never want to feel invisible again. You won't. You're permanent here, and we'll make sure you are everywhere. Maya smiled tiredly. Good. He stood, kissed her forehead. Sleep tight. I love you. Love you, Daddy. He quietly exited and closed the door, pausing to look back before the click. 2 children, asleep together in safety, worlds apart from where they had started. In the hallway, Ethan paused, running a hand through his hair. He thought of Clara, of past grief. He thought of shadows and screeches of pages in court. He thought of the letter that threatened him, now long exposed by truth. He knelt at the window looking out over the porch lights and the oak tree. He whispered into night air, Thank you. No wind, no echo, just the promise of morning. Tomorrow would come with new growth, new laws, new rooms, and new paint. But tonight, it was enough. 4 hearts bound together, ready for a home they had built and honored the courage it took to start again. Dawn broke gentle over Houston, light, warm, and hopeful. Birds called to each other in low harmony. Inside the house, 2 children slept on cots in a shared bedroom, Benjamin on his crib rollover, and Maya on her own bed under a rocket lamp nightlight, the one Ethan gave her. Ethan stepped quietly across the room, stopping at the doorway. He took in the scene. Maya's arm draped over the edge of the bed, Benjamin nestled among soft blankets, night shadows folded safe around them. The years of broken grief, courtroom battles, the noise and fear, it was all behind them now, or at least in a place they could breathe freely. He closed the door gently and walked downstairs. In the kitchen, steam rose from the coffee pot's warm glow. He lined up 4 mugshires, his, one for the attorney who often stopped by, one for Marcia when she came to see the kids. He pulled out a small piece of paper Maya had left on the fridge. Family is where the heart is. He smiled. A knock came. He opened the door to find Senator Alvarez on the porch, holding a manila folder stamped with legislative seals. Morning, Mr. Moore, the senator said softly. Everything okay? Ethan nodded. Better than okay. He led him inside. Senator Alvarez placed the folder on the counter. I wanted you to be the first to know. We're introducing the Benjamin Maya Act, mandatory reassessment before death certificate for infants under 1 year. Whistleblower protections for children or outsiders who speak up. Ethan's chest tightened. That's incredible. The senator smiled. Because of your courage, because of Maya, and because enough voices joined in. This could change neonatal care across Texas. Ethan looked out toward the backyard, where Maya waved at him from the treehouse floor she and Benjamin had painted, the house filled with laughter from them. He took a breath. Thank you. Senator Alvarez placed a hand on his shoulder. Thank you for refusing to go quiet. As the morning unfolded, the house buzzed with different visitors. Marcia with fresh news coverage, the attorney with updates on settlement funds and their secure account that would cover Maya's education. A representative from a child advocacy group bringing a care package, books, school supplies, shoes, toys. By midday, Ethan found Maya and Benjamin beneath the oak tree. He settled on a picnic blanket, passing sandwiches and juice boxes. Maya sat cross-legged, Benjamin batting at the juice cup. The 2 of them were unstoppable, playful, present, secure. Marcia joined them, sat near, listening to Maya's plans, adding a slide to the treehouse, growing climbing roses along the back fence. Ethan watched her lead, dream forward, live unapologetically. Later in the afternoon, wooden planks and nails were gathered to build their treehouse. Ethan worked with Maya and Benjamin by his side. Benjamin hammering tiny nails into a plank, per H's size, Maya measuring boards. They hammered in time together, the day bright, warm, unbroken. By dusk, the floor of the treehouse stood strong beneath freshly painted boards. Ropes and boards attached, lace straps anchored. Maya's face was wet with sweat, her smile drenched in triumph. Ethan wrapped a protective arm around her. "Look what you did," he said. Maya looked at Benjamin, who waved as if claiming the very beams above them as his own fortress. The evening faded. Inside, Ethan cooked a meal everyone loved, chicken pot pie and green beans. Maya set the table, humming. Benjamin reached up to Ethan's neck, pulling pajamas warm from the dryer, not his own, but one of Maya's from charity donations. He drifted to sleep later, tucking the stuffed fox under his arm. Before bed, Maya knocked on Ethan's office door. He invited her in. "I've been thinking," she said, perched on the corner of his desk. "I want to plant something by the treehouse. A rose bush." Ethan considered the law passed, the settlement funds, the new security they had. "Let's do it." They planted 2 bushes side by side, one crimson red, one yellow. Maya patted the soil. "Friends forever," she murmured. Ethan looked at the sunset through the window trees turning gold. "Friends forever." Later, he tucked her in. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Mama would be proud." He placed a gentle kiss. "She is. Every day." He left the door cracked open, the night air warm, alive. He paused at the top of the stairs, looking back at their 2 sleeping children safe, whole, together. The Benjamin Maya Act would have its day in the legislature. The hospital had already begun systemic changes. The world changed in ways no money or fame could match. So they sat, hearts full, futures bright. 4 souls bound by tragedy. 2 children given a second chance. 1 father who refused to stay silent. Tonight, they were a family. And at dawn, they'd do it again.